Jenny's fingers trembled as she reached for the fallen photograph behind Ji-un Park's mahogany desk. She shouldn't be in his private office, but the cleaning schedule demanded it. The frame had slipped behind the heavy furniture, and now, as she knelt on the plush carpet of his Bel Air mansion, her necklace slipped free from beneath her uniform collar. The steel ring caught the afternoon light streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Los Angeles. "What are you doing?" Her heart stopped. Ji-un's voice, that low, dangerous timbre that made everyone in the house walk on eggshells, came from the doorway. She scrambled to her feet, tucking the necklace back, but it was too late. His eyes weren't on her face. They were locked on the ring hanging from her neck, and his expression had shifted into something she'd never seen before. Terror, recognition, grief. "Where did you get that?" His voice cracked like breaking ice. "Seoul, South Korea, 22 years ago. The rain fell in sheets over the Daehangno district, turning the narrow alley behind the orphanage into a river of cold misery." 6-year-old Jenny pressed herself against the brick wall, her thin donated dress already soaked through. She'd been at Sunshine Children's Home for 2 months. 2 months since the social worker explained that the family in California couldn't take her after all. She didn't belong here. She didn't speak Korean. The other children stared at her dark skin, touched her hair without asking, whispered words she couldn't understand but knew weren't kind. "You'll get sick out here." Jenny looked up. A boy stood before her, maybe 8 or 9, holding a flattened cardboard box over his head. He was all knees and elbows, too thin, but his eyes were sharp and watchful. "I don't care," she said in English, hoping he'd just leave her alone. "I know what you said." His English was careful, practiced. "I don't care either, but the Ajuma will punish you if you get sick. She'll say you did it on purpose to cause trouble." He crouched down, holding the cardboard over both of them now. Rain drummed against it, already weakening the soggy barrier. "I'm Ji-un," he said. "I've been here since I was 3. "Jenny." She hugged her knees. 2 months. 2 months is nothing. You're brand new." He tilted his head, studying her. "Why are you crying?" "A family came today. They took Min-jun." Her voice was small. "Nobody ever looks at me." Ji-un's expression hardened with understanding beyond his years. "Min-jun is little. Little kids get picked. We're too old." "You're not old. You're just a kid." "Not here." He shifted, and she noticed a bruise on his arm, finger-shaped and purple. "Here, if you're older than 5 and not perfect, you're already used up." They sat in silence for a moment, the rain their only companion. "Hold out your hand," Ji-un said suddenly. Jenny extended her small palm. He pulled something from his pocket, a ring roughly made from dark steel, scratched and bent in places. It looked like it had been through hell. "I found this in the gutter 3 weeks ago," he explained. "I'd been keeping it hidden. I was going to sell it, but—" He placed it in her hand. "You should have it." "Why?" His dark eyes met hers with fierce intensity. "Because you need to remember something. When they don't choose you, it's not because you're not worth choosing. It's because they're blind." Jenny's fingers closed around the ring. It was warm from his pocket. "One day," Ji-un continued, his voice dropping to a whisper, "we'll both get out of this place. We'll go somewhere we belong, and nobody will ever make us feel small again. Promise." He pulled the dirty string from around his neck, the one he used to tie his 2 long pants, and threaded the ring onto it. Then he fastened it around her neck. "I promise," he said. "No matter what happens, no matter where we go, I will always protect you. That ring is my word." The cardboard collapsed in the rain, but neither of them moved. "Los Angeles, now. I asked you a question." Ji-un's voice cut through Jenny's shock like a blade. He stepped into the office, and she instinctively backed against the desk. "Where did you get that ring?" Her hand flew to her chest, covering the necklace. "It's mine. It's always been mine." "That's impossible." He moved closer, and she could see the transformation in his face, the cold, controlled mask of the man they called the Lone Wolf was fracturing. "Tell me the truth. Did someone give it to you? Did they send you here?" Send me. I don't understand. Answer me. His hand slammed on the desk beside her, making her jump. But it wasn't anger in his eyes. It was something far more dangerous, desperation. Jenny's heart hammered. In 3 months of working in this mansion, she'd never seen Ji-un Park lose his composure. He was ice. He was control. He ran an empire from this office, made men twice his size shrink with a single glance, and never, ever showed weakness. A boy gave it to me, she whispered, a long time ago, in Korea. The color drained from his face. Korea. At an orphanage, when I was 6. The words tumbled out now. He found it in the street and gave it to me. He said it was a promise that he'd always protect me. Ji-un's hand dropped from the desk. He took a step back, then another, like she'd struck him. His eyes roamed her face, really looked at her for the first time since she'd started working here. Jenny, he breathed. Your name is Jenny. How do you know my... Williams. Jenny Williams. You were adopted when you were 7 by a family in Sacramento. His voice was hollow, distant. You had a small scar on your left knee from falling on the playground. You hated kimchi. You used to hum when you were nervous. Jenny's world tilted. How could you possibly know that? He raised a shaking hand to his neck, pulling down the collar of his white shirt. 4 buttons undone, as always. But now she could see what she'd never noticed before. A tattoo of a lone wolf, beautifully rendered in black ink, its eyes seeming to stare directly at her. I got this when I turned 18, he said, the day I left Sunshine Children's Home. The day I left you behind. The office spun. Jenny gripped the desk for support. Ji-un? I looked for you. The confession burst from him like a broken dam. For years I searched. I hired investigators, hackers, everyone. But the adoption records were sealed, and you'd changed families twice before someone finally kept you. By the time I found the Sacramento address, you'd already moved away for college. You looked for me? Tears burned her eyes. Why? Because I made you a promise. He touched the ring through her uniform, his fingers gentle despite the tremor in them. And I've never broken a promise in my life. But you don't know me anymore. I'm not that little girl. I know. His voice dropped to barely a whisper. You're the woman who's been living in my house for 3 months, the woman I couldn't stop watching, the woman who hums when she's nervous, just like she did when she was 6. Jenny's breath caught. You knew. No. His eyes met hers, and the raw pain in them nearly broke her. I suspected. I hoped. I was terrified I was going insane, seeing ghosts in every corner. Do you have any idea what it's been like having you here, wondering if you were her? Seoul, South Korea, 21 years ago. Ji-un, Jenny, time for bed. Jenny scrambled down from the window ledge where she'd been sitting with Ji-un, watching the Seoul skyline twinkle in the distance. At 7 years old, she'd been at Sunshine Home for 14 months now, and Ji-un had become her whole world. 5 more minutes, Ji-un called back to the night supervisor. He was 10 now, growing taller, his face losing its childish roundness. Now, the woman's voice was sharp. They hurried down the hallway, but Ji-un grabbed Jenny's hand before they reached the separate dormitories for boys and girls. I have to tell you something, he whispered urgently. The Kims are coming tomorrow. Jenny's stomach dropped. The Kims were a wealthy family from Gangnam who wanted to adopt an older boy, someone to eventually take over their business. You're going to leave, she said, and it wasn't a question. Maybe. Ji-un's grip on her hand tightened. If they choose me, I have to go, Jenny. This might be my only chance to get out of here. I know. She did know. She wanted him to have a family, a real home. But the thought of losing her only friend felt like drowning. Listen to me. He knelt down, forcing her to meet his eyes. When I leave, I'm going to work hard. I'm going to become someone important. And when I'm old enough, strong enough, I'm coming back for you. You don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was fierce. You're my responsibility. Do you understand? I gave you that ring. That means you're mine to protect. What if they don't choose you? Something dark flickered across his face. They will. I'll make sure of it. The next day, Jenny watched from the dormitory window as the Kims' expensive car pulled up. Ji-eun walked out to meet them, his back straight, his expression carefully neutral. She touched the ring under her shirt. Please let him be happy, she prayed. Please let him have a good life, but the Kims left without him. That night, Ji-eun didn't come to their usual spot by the window. Jenny found him behind the building, his knuckles bloody, his face empty. They said I was too old, he said flatly. 10 is too old. They want someone younger, more moldable. I'm sorry, don't be. He looked at her, and for the first time she saw something that scared her. Rage, cold, calculating rage. I don't need them. I don't need anyone. You have me. The anger softened slightly. Yeah, I have you. 2 weeks later, a different family came. The Williamses, an American couple who'd been trying to adopt for years. They wanted a young girl, preferably one who spoke some English. They chose Jenny. She found Ji-eun in their spot, and when she told him, he smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. See? I told you. You're getting out. Come with me, she begged, even though she knew it was impossible. Tell them you're my brother. Tell them... I can't. He pulled her into a hug, the first and only time he'd ever done so. But you remember our promise, okay? I'm going to find you someday. And I'm going to make sure you never have to be afraid again. She left for America the next morning. She never saw him again. Until today. I need to sit down, Jenny whispered, and Ji-eun immediately guided her to the leather chair behind his desk. He poured water from the crystal decanter, his hands steadier now, and pressed the glass into her trembling fingers. Drink. She obeyed, trying to organize the chaos in her mind. You've been watching me for 3 months. Yes, he didn't apologize. From the moment you walked through my door for the housekeeping interview, I couldn't look away. Your voice, the way you move, that habit you have of tucking your hair behind your ear when you're concentrating. He paused. You still hum. I don't understand. Jenny set the glass down. If you thought I might be... her. Me. Why didn't you say something? And say what? Ji-eun's laugh was bitter. Excuse me, but are you the girl I knew for 14 months when we were children? The girl I've spent 22 years searching for? Oh, and by the way, I'm now the head of the Korean-American syndicate that controls half of Los Angeles's underground trade. The words hung in the air like smoke. That's what you are, Jenny said slowly. The lone wolf. I've heard the other staff whisper. You're a criminal. I'm a businessman. His tone was flat, with business interests that operate outside conventional legal frameworks. That's a fancy way of saying you're a gangster. Yes. He met her eyes without flinching. I'm exactly what I promised I'd never let you see. The monster I became to survive. Jenny studied him, really looked at him. The Ji-eun she remembered had been a skinny boy with kind eyes and gentle hands. This man was carved from stone and shadows, his presence filling the room like a predator in its den. The white shirt, unbuttoned, just enough to show the wolf tattoo and the hard planes of his chest. The expensive watch, the scar on his jaw she'd never dared ask about. What happened to you? She asked quietly. You want the truth? He leaned against the desk, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something dark and expensive. After you left, I stayed at Sunshine for 2 more years. No one wanted a 12-year-old boy with anger issues. So when I turned 14, I ran. Where did you go? The streets, Seoul's underworld. I did things. He stopped, jaw clenching. I did what I had to do to survive. I stole, I fought. I made connections with people who saw potential in a smart kid with nothing to lose. The Mafia, the Sang-Yong-Pa, the Double Dragon. They took me in, trained me, used me. His voice hardened. And when I was old enough, strong enough, I took everything from them and built my own organization. Jenny's stomach churned. You killed people. Yes. No hesitation. I've killed. I've ordered deaths. I've destroyed families and crushed empires. I am not a good man, Jenny. I am exactly what you should run from. Then why did you hire me? The question burst out. If you thought I might be me, why bring me into your home? Ji-eun's composure finally cracked. Because I'm selfish. Because I've spent 22 years looking for you, and when you walked through that door I couldn't let you go. Even if you never recognized me, even if I had to live with you seeing me as just your employer. His voice dropped to a rough whisper. I told myself I was protecting you, keeping you close, keeping you safe. But the truth is, I needed you near me, even if I could never tell you why. Sacramento, California, 20 years ago. 8-year-old Jenny sat at her new family's kitchen table, the ring hidden beneath her shirt as always. She'd been with the Williamses for 7 months now, and while they were kind, she still felt like a guest in someone else's home. Jenny, honey, can you set the table? Mrs. Williams called from the stove. Yes, ma'am. As she placed forks and knives around the table, her mind drifted back to Seoul, to rainy afternoons and a boy who'd promised to protect her. She wondered if Ji-eun was still at the orphanage, if he was okay, if he ever thought about her. She touched the ring through her shirt. She'd never told the Williamses about it. It was her secret, her connection to a past that felt increasingly like a dream. That night, in the privacy of her room, she pulled out the small notebook she kept hidden under her mattress. She'd been writing to Ji-eun since she left Korea, letters she'd never send, words she'd never say. Dear Ji-eun, she wrote in her careful handwriting. Today, I started 3rd grade. The other kids asked about my accent. I told them I'm from Korea, but I didn't tell them about you. That's our secret. I hope you're okay. I hope someone finally chose you. I hope you're happy. I still have the ring. I'll never take it off. Love, Jenny. She closed the notebook and pressed it to her chest. Somewhere across the Pacific Ocean, in a cold warehouse in Seoul's Itaewon district, 10-year-old Ji-eun pressed a stolen phone to his ear, listening to the number he'd memorized being disconnected for the 100th time. The Sunshine Children's Home had been shut down for financial irregularities, the children scattered to different facilities. Jenny's file had been transferred, sealed, and lost in bureaucratic red tape. He'd lost her. Kid, you coming or what? A rough voice called from the warehouse entrance. Min-soo, one of the Sang Yong-pa's enforcers, was waiting. Ji-eun pocketed the phone and stood. He'd made a decision 3 months ago when he'd run from his latest foster placement. If he couldn't find Jenny through official channels, he'd build enough power to search through unofficial ones. He'd become untouchable, unstoppable, and he'd find her, even if it took his whole life. Stop! Jenny stood abruptly, putting the desk between them. Her mind was reeling, heart pounding. This is insane. We were children. We knew each other for barely a year. You can't have spent your entire life searching for some girl from an orphanage. Why not? Ji-eun's voice was dangerously soft. Give me one good reason why not. Because it's obsessive. Because you were the only person who ever saw me as human. The confession exploded from him. You looked at me like I mattered, like I was worth something. Do you have any idea what that meant to a 9-year-old boy who'd been abandoned by his parents, rejected by every family who came through those doors? Jenny's breath caught. I was nothing. Ji-eun continued, his voice raw. I was invisible. And then you showed up, this tiny girl who didn't even speak the language, who had every reason to hate the world, and you smiled at me. You trusted me. You made me want to be someone worth protecting. We were children, she repeated weakly. I know. He moved around the desk, slowly, like approaching a frightened animal. I know it's crazy. I know I should have moved on, lived my life, forgotten about a promise made in the rain 22 years ago. He stopped in front of her. But I couldn't. Every woman I met, I compared to my memory of you. Every decision I made, I thought, what would she think of me now? Ji-eun. I built this empire on blood and violence, but I told myself it was so I could protect you when I found you. I became a monster, but I convinced myself it was necessary, that when I finally tracked you down, I'd have the power to keep you safe from everything. His laugh was broken, And then you walked into my house, and I realized the only thing you needed protection from was me. Tears streamed down Jenny's face. I don't know what you want me to say. Nothing. He raised his hand, hesitated, then gently touched the ring through her uniform. You don't have to say anything. You can leave. I'll pay you for 6 months. I'll give you enough money to start over anywhere you want. I'll make sure you're safe, comfortable, protected. And then what? I just forget this conversation happened? Yes. His hand dropped. Because that's what you should do. Forget the boy from the orphanage. Forget the promise. And definitely forget the man standing in front of you. Jenny looked up at him, at the hard lines of his face, the wolf tattoo on his neck, the expensive clothes that screamed power and danger. But underneath all of that, she saw something else. Something she recognized. The same loneliness that had driven a 6-year-old girl into the rain. What if I don't want to forget? She whispered. Ji-un froze. What? What if I don't want to leave? Jenny, you don't understand what you're saying. I'm not the boy who gave you that ring. I know who you are. She touched his chest, right over his heart. You're Ji-un Park, the lone wolf, a criminal, a killer, and the boy who gave me hope when I had nothing. His hand covered hers. I can't be that boy again. I'm not asking you to be. She met his eyes. I'm asking who you want to be now. Seoul, South Korea, 13 years ago. 18-year-old Ji-un stood in the bathroom of a dingy motel, washing blood from his knuckles. The man he'd beaten, a low-level enforcer who'd tried to cheat the Sangyongpa, was unconscious in the next room. This was his life now. Violence, fear, power. He looked at himself in the cracked mirror and barely recognized the reflection. When had he become this? When had the scared kid from Sunshine Home turned into someone who could break bones without flinching? He knew the answer. The day he'd lost Jenny. Every year that passed without finding her, he'd pushed himself harder, deeper into the darkness. He told himself it was all for her, that when he finally tracked her down, he'd need the resources, the connections, the power to give her everything she'd never had. But the truth, the part he didn't want to examine too closely, was that he was also punishing himself. He'd failed her, he'd promised to protect her, and then he'd let her disappear into a system he couldn't navigate. So he'd become someone who could navigate any system, who could find anyone, who could tear down walls and destroy obstacles. He'd become a monster. His phone buzzed. A text from Min-soo. Congratulations. You're officially one of us. Boss wants to see you. Ji-un stared at the message. This was it. The moment he'd been working toward. Full membership in the organization. Access to resources that could help him search internationally. He replied with one word. Coming. In the mirror, his reflection smiled. It was a smile without warmth. The boy who'd made that promise in the rain would be horrified by what he'd become. But Ji-un didn't care. He'd find Jenny. And when he did, he'd make sure she never had to suffer again. Even if it meant she could never look at him the same way. Ji-un's office had become a confessional. For the next hour, he told her everything. The crimes he'd committed, the people he'd hurt, the empire he'd built on fear and blood. He didn't sugarcoat it, didn't make excuses. He gave her the truth she deserved. I killed the former head of the Sangyongpa when I was 23, he said, his voice hollow. He'd been planning to traffic teenage girls to Japan. I couldn't. I thought of you. What if you'd ended up in Korea instead of America? What if some monster had... He stopped, jaw clenched. So I killed him, took over his operation, reformed it. Reformed? Jenny's voice was barely a whisper. No drugs near schools, no human trafficking, no exploiting the desperate. He met her eyes. I'm still a criminal. I still hurt people. But I draw lines, lines that Monster never would have. Because of me. Because of the promise I made to a 6-year-old girl. He touched the ring again, as if grounding himself. Every decision I made, I asked myself, Would this protect her? Would this make her world safer? Even when I didn't know where you were. Jenny's mind was reeling. The housekeeping job, you created it, didn't you? There was never an opening. I own the staffing agency that supplied my previous housekeeper. When you applied there 6 months ago, your name flagged in my system. He had the grace to look ashamed. I had them offer you the position here. I wanted to see if it was really you. That's insane. I know. You manipulated my life. I know. You brought me into your home under false pretenses. I know. He stepped back, giving her space. I am everything you should hate, everything you should fear. I'm giving you one chance, Jenny. Leave. Tonight. I'll have my driver take you anywhere you want to go. I'll set up a bank account in your name with enough money to start over. You'll never have to see me again. And if I stay? His eyes flashed with something dangerous, hope mixed with fear. Then you need to understand what that means. I'm not going to change. I can't undo what I've built. My world is violent, ruthless, and dark. I know. There are people who want me dead, who would hurt you to get to me. I know. I will never be safe, never be normal, never be the kind of man you could bring home to your family. Jenny stood, closing the distance between them. Her hand went to his face, fingers tracing the scar on his jaw. Ji-eun, she said softly. I'm not that 6-year-old girl anymore. I'm not naive about what you are. Then why? Because you're also the boy who gave me hope when I had nothing, who made me feel seen when I was invisible, who spent 22 years keeping a promise to someone he thought he'd never find. Her thumb brushed his lower lip. You became a monster to protect a memory. What would you become to protect the real thing? His breath caught. Anything. Everything. Then prove it. She pulled him down until their foreheads touched. Show me that the boy I remember is still in there somewhere. Jenny, protect me, Ji-eun, like you promised. But this time, protect me from the loneliness, from the fear that I'll never belong anywhere, from the feeling that I'm not worth choosing. His arms wrapped around her, pulling her against his chest. She could feel his heart hammering, matching her own. You were always worth choosing, he whispered against her hair. Always. 3 months later, Jenny stood on the balcony of Ji-eun's Bel Air mansion, overlooking the glittering sprawl of Los Angeles. The city looked like a carpet of stars, beautiful and dangerous in equal measure. Behind her, through the floor-to-ceiling windows, she could see Ji-eun in his office, speaking in rapid Korean to someone on the phone. His posture was tense, the wolf tattoo on his neck visible as he paced. Business. Always business. But when he saw her watching, his expression softened. He held up one finger, 1 minute, and she nodded. The past 3 months had been a revelation. Ji-eun hadn't lied. His world was dark, violent, and complex. She'd learned more about the Korean-American underground than she'd ever wanted to know. She'd met men who scared her, witnessed conversations that made her blood run cold, and realized that the man she was falling in love with had more blood on his hands than she could count. But she'd also learned other things. She'd learned that Ji-eun ran a network of safe houses for trafficking victims, funded entirely from his personal accounts, that he'd destroyed 3 competing organizations specifically because they preyed on children, that every year on her birthday, a date he'd memorized from her orphanage file, he donated to children's charities across Korea and California. He'd become a monster, yes, but he'd become a monster with a code. Penny for your thoughts. Ji-eun's voice came from behind her, and she felt his arms slide around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. Just thinking about how insane my life has become, she said, leaning into him. 3 months ago, I was barely making rent. Now I'm living in a mansion with a mob boss. Technically, you're living with an import-export businessman with diverse interests. She snorted. Is that what we're calling it? It's what my lawyers call it. He pressed a kiss to her temple. How was your day? Good. I finally enrolled in that nursing program at UCLA. thanks to my mysterious benefactor. She turned in his arms, raising an eyebrow. You know, the one who paid my entire tuition and somehow got me accepted, despite the semester having already started. I have no idea what you're talking about. Ji-eun. Fine. He had the grace to look slightly sheepish. I may have made a substantial donation to their new medical wing, and mentioned that I knew a highly qualified candidate who'd had to leave her previous program due to financial hardship. You can't just buy my way into school. Watch me. He was completely unapologetic. You gave up your dream because you couldn't afford it. Now you can afford it. Problem solved. Jenny shook her head, but she was smiling. This was Ji-eun, direct, efficient, and absolutely unwilling to let obstacles stand in the way of what he wanted. And what he wanted, apparently, was for her to have everything she'd ever dreamed of. There's something I need to tell you, he said, his expression turning serious. Her stomach clenched. What's wrong? Nothing's wrong, but... He took a breath. The Sang-yong-pa in Seoul, the organization I left 13 years ago, they've been making moves in Los Angeles, trying to establish territory. And they know about you. His arms tightened around her. They know you're important to me. They're going to try to use that. Fear spiked through her. Ji-eun, I'm handling it. His voice was hard, cold, the voice of the lone wolf. But I need you to understand something. There are going to be times when I have to do things, dark things, violent things, to keep you safe. I know. You can't know. Not really. Not until... She placed her hand over his mouth. Ji-eun, I know who you are. What you are. I'm not naive, and I'm not going to pretend your world is anything other than what it is. She lowered her hand. But I also know that you've spent 22 years trying to keep a promise to a girl you thought you'd lost. So when you tell me you're handling it, I believe you. Something fierce and possessive flared in his eyes. You're too good for this life. Maybe. But this is the life I'm choosing. She touched the ring around her neck. She wore it openly now, no longer hidden beneath her clothes. You gave me this when I was 6 years old. You said it was a promise that you'd always protect me. I remember. Well, I'm making you a promise now. She took his face in her hands. I'm choosing you, the monster and the man. The criminal and the boy from the orphanage. All of it. Jenny, I'm not finished. Her voice was firm. But if I'm going to be part of your world, then I need to really be part of it. No more sheltering me. No more keeping me in the dark. If someone's threatening me, I want to know. If you're planning something dangerous, I want to know. We're partners, Ji-eun. Equal partners. He stared at her for a long moment, and she saw the war in his eyes, the need to protect her battling with the respect for her autonomy. Finally, he nodded. Equal partners. Good. She kissed him, soft and lingering. When she pulled back, she saw the promise in his eyes, the same promise he'd made all those years ago in the rain, but deeper now. Stronger. I love you, he said, the words rough and unpracticed. I don't know if I know how to love someone the right way, but whatever this is, whatever I feel when I look at you, it's everything. Tears pricked her eyes. I love you too. The boy who saved me, and the man who found me. They stood there on the balcony, wrapped in each other's arms, while Los Angeles glittered beneath them. Somewhere in the city, threats were forming. Somewhere enemies were planning. Somewhere the darkness Ji-eun had created was waiting to consume them both. But for now, in this moment, they had each other. And that was enough. Jenny adjusted her nurse's uniform in the mirror, the ring still hanging around her neck, but now accompanied by a second ring. This one was platinum, with a simple diamond that caught the morning light. Ready. Ji-eun appeared in the doorway of their bedroom, dressed in one of his expensive suits. He'd just returned from a business meeting that she knew had involved convincing a rival organization to stay out of Koreatown. She didn't ask for details. He'd tell her what she needed to know. That was their agreement. "Ready," she said, slipping her hand into his. They walked down to the car together, him heading to his office in downtown LA, her heading to her shift at UCLA Medical Center. An unlikely couple, a criminal and a nurse, a monster and the girl he'd promised to protect. In the back seat, Ji-eun pulled her close, pressing a kiss to her temple. "I have a meeting tonight," he said quietly. "It might run late. Dangerous? Potentially." She nodded, squeezing his hand. "Be careful. Always." He touched the ring on her finger. "I have too much to come home to now." As the car pulled away from the mansion, Jenny looked back at the home they'd built together. A home filled with secrets and shadows, but also with love and promises kept. 22 years ago, a 9-year-old boy had given a 6-year-old girl a ring in the rain. Today they were building a life together. Some promises, she thought, were worth waiting for, even if they came wrapped in darkness.